What's the strangest thing you found in your house property after you bought it? Not my house, but the school my friend worked at. A pipe had leaked and ruined a wall in the building. One of the oldest schools in the city. It was a beautiful property. Anyways, the pipe leaked, so they pulled down the ruined wall and behind the wall found a door. A fully furnished apartment was there. Had a coal burning stove to heat it. Early 1900s appliances and decor. It was for the caretaker of the school. My husband had a car that he bought off a friend. He had it for 4 years and the driver's side window started messing up and getting off track, so we popped the frame off the fix-it. In the door frame, we found a handgun and 2 clips wrapped in a white t-shirt. We called the friend he bought it from and turns out that the car was sold to her from a police auction. We have this side room next to some stairs. While we were moving stuff into the room, we noticed a piece of drywall was coming off the wall, so we took it off. Behind it and under the stair were some way old toys, most likely from the 50s. In the same house about a year later, we paid a company to come put new insulation in the attic. When he was done, he told me we had a portion of our attic sealed off, so we busted through, found a super old sewing table and about 15 boxes of pine cones. It was definitely some weird crafty old lady who is now retired and making things for Etsy. My dad moved into an apartment and the whole place had its nice original wood flooring from the 1940s except for the living room, which had carpet. Kind of a bummer because the wood looks nicer, but oh well. One problem, though, when it's warm out the living room smells. Can you guess where this is going? My dad decided to investigate and eventually peeled the carpet up to find a large black stain on the subfloor. A black stain so large a person could lie inside of it. The last tenant died and melted in the living room and all they did was pull the hardwood up. Grow frick. An old friend of mine grew up in the house I now own. I had no idea, but he struggled with severe mental illness from around high school on. His mom left a few boxes behind in the garage and one of them was full of all his old arrest info, letters from his parole officer, and most depressingly, a letter from the judge recommending he be remanded to a psychiatric facility instead of prison. Apparently he lived his adult years in a home for schizophrenics and died a few years ago. The whole thing was just very sad. A cardboard box with a ball gag and handcuffs. I thought it was a box of extra hardware for the closet shelves. This was after they sent a message through the realtor asking if I had found a digital camera. I had not, but I'd be kind of curious, afraid to look at what was on it. Probably the ball. Moved into an old house in Berkshire, UK, and found a Bible from the 1700s in the attic. In the back was handwritten the history of the early owners. The church in the village was 12th century and had all the records, so we tracked down the modern descendants and gave them the Bible. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, southern Idaho. The farm my folks rented was very odd. There was a ton of old farm equipment from the 40s and 50s, as well as several, about 10, old 50s cars just scattered around the property and hidden in the tree line. The owner had a small shed on the property she asked us to never open. No worries. It sat between the garage and an old mobile home trailer that was never used. We moved away, and shortly after the owner died, new property owners went into the shed, found tons of old World War II and older equipment, guns, bayonets, a Nazi flag, all sorts of crap. This shed even had an old school dirt wall basement that had old radios and tons of other crazy stuff. Unfortunately, after the new owners started messing with the shed, the basement, being dirt and all, eventually gave way and a lot of stuff was damaged. They were able to salvage a lot and sold it all, so it worked out. Most I found was a previous tenant's pea stash. As a teenager in the old trailer. Best find ever. The owner had a small shed on the property she asked us to never open. No worries. It sat between the garage and an old mobile home trailer that was never used. There's no way I'd be able to resist the curiosity. My house has a 2-person jacuzzi tub with mirrors on 3 walls around it. When I was looking at the house, there was a 4-post canopy bed with a mirror inside the canopy. Needless to say, the previous owner had his thing. When I was moving in, I found in the basement a bar with cuffs on either end hanging from the ceiling and 2 eye bolts in a board on the floor that would have made this a perfect place to tie someone up spread eagle. I strongly suspect that is what it was used for. I have a room that used to be a bar. Previous owner took the bar itself with him despite it being a built-in. It has a dropped ceiling and the lights are above with clear panels to let the light through. I was moving ceiling tiles to change a bulb and got hit in the face by what I'm guessing was a homemade sex swing that was bolted to the rafters above. I've been in this house 15 years and I still occasionally find a secret panel in a wall. It seems anywhere there was an extra bit of space he put a removable panel to make a hidden storage space. And despite all that, the single most surprising thing I found in this house is the light switch in the bathroom that has power going to it but doesn't seem to actually switch anything in the house. What do you go to, you mysterious switch? When will you stop taunting me and give up your secrets? It turns the TV on and off in the neighbor's apartment. My parents bought a home that used to be a funeral parlor almost 100 years ago. Dad had never questioned why there was a second bulkhead that went nowhere, and when there was a bust pipe they finally had to cut it open. Inside we found a small walled off room that had hundreds of old bottles, odd equipment, chemicals, perfume salts, stained glass windows from the original building and a few old ledgers and accounting books. Parents had no use for it and a local antique shop owner town historian happily took it when offered. We had received some cooler old copies of photos of how the house originally looked a few years later. I just can't get my head around how big a house must be for there to be random rooms that you don't even know about. I need and use every inch of space in my house. After moving into our new house, we found around $14,000 behind the toilet. Apparently the person who lived in the house before us did not believe in banks. Had a friend who found $200k cash in a paper bag in a bedroom closet in a rental in Shippen Cove area of Stamford CT. They turned it into cops and had to make a list of people they told in case that person came forward, lying to say it was theirs. After a certain amount of time it was theirs, net of taxes of course. An uncomfortably obvious end lab and a secret passageway. Walls had been gutted, leading from a bedroom closet to a linen closet close to the back door. Also, in the same house, an antique piano from the early 1900s. Had it been kept in better condition, we were told it would have been worth at least like $10,000 because that particular model was so rare. The strangest thing we ever found was this really long, as in over a foot long, metal screw thing that was being used to hold the windows closed. Still have no idea what it could be for. On the other hand, we buried all our dead pets in the backyard so the next person to move in has a bunch of tiny animal skeletons to discover when they start planting new trees or whatever. Earlier this year I moved into a new apartment and found 4 unopened cans of 7-Up Gold in a gap between my kitchen cabinets in the wall. 7-Up Gold was discontinued in 1988. Razor blades. The double-edged ones from the old razors. They were in the wall when we opened it up to repair a busted pipe. I noticed a pile of debris in the wall and luckily happened to be wearing gloves. I reached in to grab the debris and throw it away and pulled out a handful of blades. There were several handfuls. I later learned a feature of the mid-century modern bathroom was a blade disposal slot in the back of the medicine cabinet. Super gross and creepy. Also, if you are going to move a bathroom wall in a MCM house, be on the lookout. I'm not very tall. I was cleaning out my bedroom while preparing to move out of the house my family had rented for about 3 years. At the top of the closest, right at the back, were a balled up pair of a stranger's used underwear. That had apparently been there for at least the 3 years we'd lived there. That was gross. I'll do you one better. We've been living in our house about 3 years, and recently I was cleaning the bathroom closet. I must have reached into a nook I hadn't managed to before, and I found a frayed old toothbrush and a butt plug. I had been getting clean in a room with someone else's butt plug and what I fear may have been the butt plug cleaning utensil for 3 years. Found a box full of random crap in our basement of our apartment. Inside there was an Alcoholics Anonymous book filled with handwritten notes that progressively got less and less legible. Phone numbers, names, stories. We tried calling a few numbers and no one answered. I think the woman died from her struggles. That's really sad. The previous owner's wife had passed away not long before we purchased the house. About a week after we took possession, the realtor called us and asked if we'd found the owner's wife's wedding ring in the master bedroom closet. We had not. A few years later, we were cleaning on top of the kitchen cabinets and found the ring. Why it was on top of the kitchen cabinets we will never know. We were able to track down the owner and return it, however. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. My first. Years later, we were cleaning on top of the kitchen cabinets. Is exactly how often I clean on top of my kitchen cabinets. We found a stack of acrylic paintings in the basement, all very amateurish. Subjects ranged from creepy little girls to 70s psychedelic nude ladies. Realtor told the owners to pick them up, or they would end up in the trash. They showed up a year later asking for them. Bonus. Junk removal guy loved the 70s nudes, asked to keep them. I recently bought a house and I think it's lacking in psychedelic nude ladies. Rented the property, didn't buy, moved in and found a large sign in the rafters of the garage that had the words M House. It certainly helped connect the dots with everything else wrong with the place. We didn't realize it while touring and doing our walkthrough, but all of the bedroom locks were from the inside. Every bedroom had a medicine cabinet too. Not a house, but a car. Brought home a used 2000 Explorer with a couple thousand miles on it. Saw a piece of paper behind the plastic of the glove compartment, back where the light bulb is. I carefully pulled it out. It's a white envelope. Inside is roughly $1,000 in various bills. We called the dealership to ask them what to do, but for some reason they either could not contact the seller of the vehicle or the seller of the vehicle refused to be contacted. I wanted to turn it in because $1,000 really freaking helped me out. I would be financially devastated if I lost that much cash. That was a good year, lol. You bought a drug dealer's car. My kids found a crawl space up in a bedroom. They found Ken dolls with their hands melted and razors embedded. I did my best to lighten the freakishness and joked that Sid must have lived there. Barbie Thunderdome. 2 Kens enter, 1 Ken leaves. Change, so much change. Countless pennies, nickels, and dimes with the occasional quarter sprinkled in. All in the ground around the house. Ha, maybe it was a house my husband lived in. It's like living with Sonic the Hedgehog. A .38 revolver, hidden in a closet. Had a police officer friend run the serial number. Turns out it was stolen in a home burglary in 1973. We found it in 1998. We bought our house in September last year. About this time last year our cat started playing with this little wooden thing he found. We had no idea what he was playing with, but when we walked over to see what it was, it turned out to be a little dreidel. We had never seen it before, but that's when our cat let us know he was Jewish. A colorized, colors filled in by hand, very large black and white photograph in an ornate gilded frame. Found in the attic. The photo showed a young child in a white lacy dress wearing a cowboy hat and boots, standing on the steps of a city building, think brownstone, with a pony. The house was in the Midwest, and not near a city where such buildings might be found. It was an old photo, and you could not tell if this was a girl or a boy, since boys used to wear dresses. But what you could tell, and could not be denied, was that the child was the ugliest child any of us had ever seen. Scary ugly. I wasn't even envious about the pony. The kid was just so ugly. We hung the photo in a prominent spot and would make up a story about the person pony photo, taking turns. We left the thing in the attic when we sold the house. Didn't seem right to take it. When I was mad at my parents, I knew that I'd forgive them and forget why I was ever mad in the first place. In my anger, I conceived this plan to write down why they made me mad on a teeny tiny piece of paper and hide it, so I could rediscover it someday. I hid these little reminders in the wooden slats of my closest door. I'd stuff them in the little cracks of the baseboard, in between any chipping or peeling paint and the wall. I never discovered any of them. Whatever poor soul that bought the house after I graduated high school got to discover all the causes of my teenage angst. My cousin found an honest-to-gosh hidden room. A bookshelf swung forward and revealed an unfinished place under the stairs. It had a water glass and some Star Wars books from 1996 in it. House I grew up in, built in the 70s, had the opening to the attic behind a bookshelf. Kinda secret, except the bookshelf was built into the wall about 4 feet off the ground. Not my story, but my friend's. My friend's dad found an urn full of ashes in the basement of their house. The urn had a plaque on it with the word baby and an angel. The previous owners had left the urn there with the ashes of their baby. My friend's dad displayed the urn in their living room. They eventually sold the house and moved away, but her dad took the urn. He displays it on his mantle. I choose to think of it as a posthumous adoption, so it's wholesome instead of soul-crushing. A child-sized WWE belt. Despite purchasing my first home and now being several years worth of salary in debt for the first time, I was most interested in how I could possibly wear such a fine article of clothing to work the next day. Hang it over your shoulder and walk through the office. Instant respect. When I lived in a townhouse a few years ago, my roommate and I noticed a message scratched into the side of the refrigerator. Find the X. We searched that place high and low, never found an X. I really hope it was someone freaking with us, because if I moved out and never found the buried treasure, I'm gonna be p. $10 your roommate scratched that there to frick with you. There was a kitchen hidden behind a wall, fully furnished, with a dead mouse under the table that was practically mummified. For me, it's between a sign found on the basement ceiling that simply said "Do not hump" and the crib in the attic with a dead baby mouse in it. "Do not hump" comes from rail cars that were not to be pushed over the sorting hump. When I was young and we were moving, I didn't feel like cleaning my room, so I stuffed a bunch of knickknacks and some mildly dirty underwear into a hole in the wall before we patched it up. I hope someone finds my treasure one day. I filled a hole in my childhood bedroom wall with flip-flops. My family still owns the place though. We found a small wooden box filled with black and white photos. The photos were of the previous owners along with another couple in various nude situations. The box also contained a couple of teeth. That was a strange day. My parents found a complete encyclopedia. Even though Google was a thing when I was growing up, my dad would have me look up my questions in that encyclopedia. I found a hidden room. It was a big room that had been finished out, except for the central heat. When I say big, it was easily 15 featuring x 30 featuring. Here is what was in the room. A boxing speed bag in the corner with a pair of boxing gloves hanging nearby. Over 2 dozen women's wigs on fake heads. 2 mannequins. Both of them were naked, but neither seemed to mind. About 20 garbage bags full of stuff. A pile of women's panties knickers. At least 30 pair. About 20 hat boxes. That's just Tobias' workout room. Not me, but a family friend. He used to live across town from us in a sketchy neighborhood before moving with his wife to a house nearer us. We were over at his new house when he was telling us about how he was glad he'd moved because that house gave him the creeps. Apparently, when he moved in, there was a room in the basement with the locks on the outside and a dirty mattress on the inside. He said he always felt off in that room and rarely went in it. It's been a few years, but I still think about that house. It used to creep me TF out. I found a VHS tape from a defunct rental store in the basement. Someone stashed it away in the wood boards of the ceiling and left it there after moving. Part of me felt I was about to get cursed by the ring ghost, but popped it into an old VCR anyways. Started it at a halfway point and found some crazy 80s P. Couldn't stop laughing at the absurdity of it. You turn off the P, and the phone rings. You answer it, and a woman whispers, 7 inches. A mason jar was found on a shelf inside a bedroom closet above the door. It had piece of white fabric tape on it. Written on the tape was Jay's fart jar. I didn't want to open it to confirm. It went right in the recycling bin. Oh, come on. You can't just throw away history. When I was a teen, my mom worked for a cool little insurance company that was family owned. When I was 16, the family wanted to expand and asked my mom if she wanted to be the lead for expansion, which basically meant the family bought a small 2-bedroom house a few towns over and used the house as a second office. My mom was the only worker in the office for a long time, so I'd often go with her after school and just kinda help file and explore the area. One day I noticed a tiny door inside a closet on the top floor in the unused bedroom, so naturally I went exploring. The door took you through a small crawl space like tunnel until you suddenly dropped into a small room. The tunnel was like 2 feet from the floor of this room. It was unfinished without drywall or windows, but it had a small wooden spool table thingy, a single stool that looked pretty rickety, a teddy bear that looked fairly new, Some kids' toys that very much were not new, a small box I couldn't open and blank papers just thrown everywhere. The room didn't lead anywhere else and didn't have any other doors. The floor of it was super creaky wooden planks spaced just far enough for a tiny trickle of light to seep through. But I couldn't tell where the light was or what part of the house the room was built over. I took the teddy bear to show my mom and her boss ended up letting me keep it. I think I still have it somewhere. I'm not sure what the room was for, but it looked like a kid somewhere along the road made it into a hideaway. It was pretty neat but super out of place for the fairly remodeled house it was in. Also sounds kind of oddly creepy though, haha. A basement. I seriously bought a house and didn't know it had a basement. In my defense, the entry was through a long narrow laundry room away the back of the house where the sellers kept their dogs. They asked us not to open the door and let the dogs out, and I just never saw the other door. I discovered it when we were moving in. I felt like such a dumb crap. Floor safe in the garage under an old carpet. Completely empty. When I sell the house in 20 years, I'll put a $100 bill in it and maybe some spent shell casings so the next owners have a cool story. When I was 16, my friend's dad bought and sold houses and would pay us to clean them out. In one particular house we found a 2-man horse costume, a male blow-up doll, bag of pot, and sock'em boppers. Anyways, we had a great weekend running around our neighborhood in the horse costume with a blow-up doll on top, high as heck. This is amazing. I used cheapo sex doll in the attic crawl space. It was horrifying hilarious. We blew it up and put it around the house as a joke. Eventually my mum put it on hard rubbish. Someone took a photo of it which ended up on the front page of our local council newspaper. Don't have the news clipping anymore, which is a shame. Most famous anyone in the immediate family has ever gotten, really. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.